The Goblin's been swinging a hot bat of late, 7 for his last 15. Here's the 2-1. Deep to left. That ball is gone. The crowd loves it. I've never heard this much generic Goblin noise.
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. If you're looking for cards in the US, look no further as you can use the promo code MTGMUDSTA to get you 5% off anything on the site. Or if you're in Canada like me, you can use the same promo code at Multizone to get 10% off your orders of singles. If cards aren't what you're looking for, Original Magic Art has playmats, tokens, and sweet art that you can use that same promo code to help you get 5% off your order there. If you're looking to bling out your cards, using Alter Sleeves is a great way to do so, and you can click the affiliate link in my About section to help out the channel as you make an order. And if you just want to help out the channel, you can always consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month and join the generic Goblin gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game is with those dashing Danes, and Sander is playing his new Beledros deck. His opener has an Exsanguinate, Ramunap Excavator, Swamp, Forest, Overgrown Tomb, Petrified Field, and a Mirror Pool. Mads is playing his Atla deck, keeping Deflecting Swat, Reflecting Pool, Mountain, Xenagos, 3 Visits, Nature's Lore, and a Sneak Attack. Unfortunately, someone told Yes Rising we're playing EDH, so he's here too, with his Malcolm and Tymna deck, keeping a Dark Ritual, a Marsh Flats, a Frantic Search, a Blind Obedience, a Warkite Marauder, and a Mystical Tutor. I'm rocking my new Omnath deck, keeping a Breeding Pool, a Hollowed Fountain, a Ghost Town, Simic Growth Chamber, Temple of Mystery, Flooded Strand, and a Cyclonic Rift. Mads wins the die roll and starts us off. The first land of the game is Mads playing a Sunpetal Grove, which comes in tapped as he passes to Jesper. Jesper plays a Marsh Flats for a turn, cracking it and losing 1 to find a scrubland. Sander plays a tapped Overgrown Tomb, passing to me. I play a tapped land as well, with a Temple of Mystery coming in so I can scry 1. Mads plays a Stomping Grounds, taking 2 so it comes in untapped, and then casts 3 visits to go and find a third land. Jesper plays an island for turn, and he taps 1 black for a Dark Ritual. He then uses 2 of the black plus the blue mana for Frantic Search, drawing 2 and discarding 2. He gets to untap 2 lands from the spell, and then taps his 2 lands plus using the black floating for Malcolm, and then passes turn. Sander's turn is quite quick as he plays a tap Mirror Pool, passing. I play a Hollowed Fountain, taking 2 so it comes in untapped, so I can cast a Walking Atlas. Mads plays his Reflecting Pool, and then brings out his commander, Atla Palani. Jesper plays a Mana Crypt in his main phase, and goes at Mads with Malcolm. His commander connects for 2, and makes him a treasure token, which he uses in his second main phase to help cast Tymna. Sander plays a Swamp, and then pays 3 mana for Salrulf, Realm Eater. He then passes to me. I draw and play a tap Simic Growth Chamber, which comes into play and bounces my Temple of Mystery back to hand. I then tap the Walking Atlas to put the Temple of Mystery back out, scrying 1 before passing to Mads. Mads plays a Taiga, and casts Nature's Lore to go and find a tapped Temple Garden, passing to Jesper. Jesper rolls for his Mana Crypt and passes. He swings at me with Tymna, and Malcolm goes at Sander. He makes a treasure token from Malcolm connecting, and then gains 2 from Tymna's lifelink, which he immediately loses to Tymna's second ability in his post-combat main phase as he draws 2 cards. He then casts Savine's Reclamation to bring back the Marsh Flats, and then drops a Warkite Marauder. This has Salrulf getting a counter from the treasure being sacrificed, and Jesper then cracks the Marsh Flats to go and find a land, giving the wolf another counter. He puts into play a Tundra, which Jesper taps for 1 white to cast Swords to Plowshares, exiling the wolf and gaining Sander 5 life. He then passes turn. Sander plays a Forest and casts Tempt the Discovery. I take him up on it, while Mads and Jesper refuse. I put out a Polluted Delta, while he puts out a Lotus Field and a Field of the Dead. He sacrifices 2 lands as the Lotus Field comes in, and then passes to me. I draw and cast Exploration in my main phase. I crack my fetch land and take 3 so the Shock comes into play untapped, and then tap enough for Omnath. It comes in, and I draw a card. I then play a Flooded Strand from my hand, triggering Omnath to give me 4 life, and I crack the strand, grabbing a Temple Garden, and gain 1 of each color that Omnath costs. I use that 4 for Tymna Omnath, who comes in and deals 2 damage to Tymna. I then pass to Mads, who at the end of turn makes an egg with Atla. Mads plays a Spectator Seeding as his land for turn. He then casts a Sylvan Library and taps enough for Xenagos, God of Revels. He gives his commander the pump and swings her at Sander for 4. Jesper passes his Mana Crypt roll in his upkeep and recasts Tymna in his main phase. He goes at Sander with Malcolm and sends the Warcade at me, with both of us taking 2, and Jesper then makes 2 treasures. He then loses 2 life in his post-combat main phase to Tymna's ability, and draws 2 cards. One of them is an island which he plays, and he taps 1 black for a Deadeye Tracker, passing. Sander's main phase has him casting a Toxic Deluge, and he puts 5 life into the spell. Jesper counters this with a Swan Song though, and once that's done, Sander then plays a Raminap Excavator so he can play a swamp from his graveyard. At the end of turn, I use the Atlas to put out a land and gain 4 life from Omnath's landfall trigger. I play a Ghost Town for turn and mutate Parcel Beast onto the Tymna Omnath. I then pay the 1 colorless to activate the Parcel Beast Omnath, but sadly it's not a land, so I have to put it to hand. I do cast it though, and Cultivate hits the stack. I put to field a mountain, and put to hand an island. This gives me another +1/+1 counter to put onto something from Tymna Omnath, and I give it to my commander. I then play the island, giving the commander Omnath another counter, plus I get to draw a card because I pay 8 or more lands. And I then drop an Elvish Reclaimer, and go to combat. I swing my commander at Jesper, who blocks with a Deadeye Tracker after thinking about taking the hit. I then pass to Mads. Mads uses his library on his draw step, and doesn't keep any extras. He plays a mountain, and then drops out Sneak Attack. 1 red mana gets him a Protean Hulk, which he promises is just for value. He counts up his devotion at this point, and we realize Xenagos is actually active. Moving to combat, the Hulk gets the pump from Xenagos and goes at me, while Xenagos goes at Jesper. I block with my Atlas, and Jesper just takes a hit, which I catch later on. Moving to his end step, Mads then sacrifices the Hulk, and goes to find creatures with a total converted mana cost of 6 or less. Meanwhile, Jesper casts Mystical Tutor to go and find an instant or a sorcery to put on top. Mads just puts out a Kadama, while Jesper finds and puts on top of his library Yawgmoth's Will. Jesper untaps and draws his Will, and casts it in his main phase after passing his Mana Crypt roll. He then plays a Marsh Flats from the yard, and uses Swords to Plowshares on my Tymna Omnath, gaining me 3 life, and then casts a Frantic Search. He cracks the flats, losing 1 to find an underground sea, and then taps the sea for black to cast Dark Ritual again. He uses that 3 black mana for Necropotence, and goes to combat. He swings the bird and the Warkite at Sander, turning his bird token into a not bird really, and swings Malcolm at me. Both connect for 2, with Jesper making 2 treasure tokens, and then losing 2 life in his post-combat main phase to Tymna to draw 2 cards. He plays a Talisman of Dominance, and then pays 3 life into the Necropotence, passing, and putting the cards exiled into his hand at the end of turn. Sander untaps and draws, playing a Petrified Field, and then all but tapping out for a Beledros. Once his commander is on the field, he loses 10 life to untap all of his lands. He then pays 5 for Titania, who comes in and brings back a forest into play. He then goes at Jesper for 4, connecting and passing. Sander gets a pest token on my upkeep, and I pay 6 for a Geode Rager. I then cast Kadama's Reach, finding a basic for the field and 1 for my hand. This gives me a Goad, which I target Mads with, and I also gain 4 life from Omnath. I then play the island from my hand, and make Sander goaded as well, gaining 4 mana from Omnath. We move to combat, and I swing Omnath at Sander because Beledros is scary. He blocks with his pest token, gaining 1 life, and I then pass, with Mads making an egg at the end of my turn. Mads uses his library and takes 1 extra card, losing 4. He plays a Plains and then drops a Phyrexian Altar. He cracks an egg on the altar, revealing off the top directly an Elesh Norn. This completely hoses Jesper's side of the board, while Sander and I lose some creatures, with Sander's Pest dying and gaining him 1. Mads then sacrifices the second egg, and goes until he hits a creature, which this time is Blightsteel Colossus. I'm very happy he can't attack me this turn, and Mads then activates his commander to make a third egg, and cracks it as well. He goes until he hits a Terrastodon, which comes in and blows up the Field of the Dead and Necropotence, giving Jesper and Sander a 3/3 elephant, which is actually now a 1/1 because of Elesh Norn. He then moves to combat, putting the Xenagos trigger on Blightsteel. He swings the Infected Colossus at Sander, and Xenagos and Kadama Jesper. I'm very concerned at this point, and feel that Sander's my best bet to help me deal with Mads while not trying to steal the win immediately. So I cast a Cyclonic Rift to try and bounce the Colossus back to hand. Casting for free a Deflecting Swat, but Jesper counters that by exiling a card to help cast Force of Negation for free. The Colossus is then bounced, and Jesper then takes 16 from the creatures, and Mads passes. Jesper casts Limdol's Vault at the end of turn, and not going any deeper, just rearranges his top 5. He then moves to his turn, rolling for the Mana Crypt, and fails, taking 3. He draws, and then goes to cast Demonic Tutor. This has him tutoring 4 and casting a Bolas' Citadel, and he looks at his top card. He casts a Sensei's Divining Top, which is almost a combo, assuming he has access to Aetherflux Reservoir. He casts off the top a Talisman of Progress, taking 2 from the Citadel. He then looks at his top card, and activates his top, rearranging his top 3. He plays a Mystic Sanctuary to put the Mystical Tutor back on top, and then loses 1 life as he casts it, and goes to find a Vampiric Tutor, putting that on top. He then activates the Sensei's Divining Top to see the 2 cards under the Vampiric Tutor, and with nothing good, passes. At the end of turn, Sander sacrifices the Petrified Field to put the Field of the Dead back to hand. He gets another Elemental token from Titania, and I just realized he has like 3 lands that have Field in their name out. Sander gets a Pest on his upkeep, which dies immediately from Elesh Norn and gains him 1 life. He plays a Command Tower as his land for turn, and taps out with his lands to float some mana. He loses another 10 to untap them with Beledros, and using the colorless floating from his previous tapping of Mirror Pool, he has enough mana to sacrifice the Mirror Pool and make a token copy of Beledros. He then sacrifices the real one as the token comes in, and gains an Elemental token from Titania since the Mirror Pool got sacrificed from using the ability. Sander then loses another 10 life as he untaps his lands, and uses 2 of the floating mana to go cast Demonic Tutor and find a card. It's an Nyxbloom Ancient, which he wishes he'd gone to find earlier. He then retaps his lands, but this time producing 3 times as much as they normally would. This allows him to put to stack an Exsanguinate, where X is 21, and in response, Jesper goes out on his own terms by casting Vampiric off the top of his library, thanks to the Bolas' Citadel, and losing 1. Sander then gains the Meaning of Life, or as they say 42, as he drains his remaining opponents for 21 each. He still has to attack this turn, and he goes at Mads with what he can. Mads blocks 2 creatures, but still takes the rest, and with nothing else, Sander passes. I untap, draw, and with very little that I can do, have to pass to Mads. Mads untaps and can't even use his library if he wanted to. He casts a Goblin Bombardment, and then makes an egg token with Atla. He sacrifices it to kill off one of Sander's tokens with the bombardment, and reveals until he hits Anger, which is not the best hit. He sacrifices the Anger to shoot my Geode, which also dies, and then brings back out the Blightsteel once he activates Sneak Attack. He pumps and swings the Blightsteel at Sander thanks to Xenagos, and the rest of his team heads my way. Sander can't block enough Infect and still takes the lethal 10, while I block the Terrastodon with Omnath, but the attack still hurts and drops me to 2. This unfortunately puts me in range of Mads killing me with bombardment, and I know when I'm beat, congratulating him on his win. Game review time. So this was an interesting one. Unfortunately, it seemed like as soon as Mads resolved the sacrifice outlet, the game was all but over, and even if someone had a removal for the Phyrexian altar, it seemed like he had the Goblin Bombardment in hand, ready to go. When Jesper told me he wanted to play Esper partners, I was a little bit worried, because typically any list I see with Tymna, I was pleasantly surprised though with this one, considering it seemed like a lot of his deck required creatures to connect with his opponents in order for him to get some value. I will say that Beledros is terrifying, and even though Sander said he made a mistake not demonic tutoring for the Nyxbloom Ancient earlier, he was still able to get off an Exsanguinate for 21 that early. I loved his strategy of making a token copy using the Mirror Pool, and I could see things like Mimic Vat or even Helm of the Host being very powerful in a deck like this. I'm still not sold on this Omnath. I think in this case I missed a couple triggers. It has so much going on for it, and you have to keep track of so many things, and the way that I've built it has multiple landfall triggers happening per land, so it gets very easy to miss things, and I'm just not that keen on embarrassing myself in front of everyone on the internet constantly. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.